Hi, I'm Dr. Younger. I'm director of the Neuroinflammation Pain and Fatigue Lab. So this is the day when our big grant goes in. You might have heard me mentioning this briefly over the past few weeks. I've been spending a lot of time on this application, and today I'm going to be done. This is actually the hardest part of writing a grant for me. It's when all the documents have been generated, but I know that there's probably mistakes, little typos or little sentences that are phrased poorly in there, and I just want to find them all. And no matter how much time you spend, you'll always find more things. So at some point, you just have to let it go. Say, it's time to be done. Let's send it off, hope for the best, and then turn our attention to something else. So that's what I have to do today. So because of that, this video will be shorter, but I did think that there are some brief things we could talk about. What I wanted to discuss briefly today, if you've ever wondered, does Jared get bored and not have enough to do? I want to show you why that's not the case. I want to show you the priorities we have for the second half of 2024 and kind of our ambitious goals, what we're trying to get done in the next 6-7 months until it's 2025, which is hard to believe. So I'm going to tell you about our top research priorities. These are the projects that are ongoing right now. If you want to, if you see some of these and you're like, well, what is he talking about? What is that? Most everything I'm discussing in the next few minutes, I've done a previous video on, and I give a lot more detail there. So I'll put a link to the playlist, and then you can go back and check out the videos if you want to learn more about any of these topics. So I decided to talk about the 8 biggest projects we have going on right now. So the first one is our botanical trial for Gulf War illness. This is where we're looking at curcumin, stinging nettle, and resveratrol, which I've shown in previous research to work very well for this inflammatory condition. And this is our remote trial where people can apply from anywhere in the United States and can participate from anywhere. So I'm really excited that this is working well. We're probably about halfway through the trial right now. And this is kind of laying the groundwork for future remote trials. As you've probably heard me say before, I want to open up our clinical trials to everyone or to as many people as possible, and not to people that happen to live around our institution. And so far it's working very well. So I'm very encouraged by that. So you'll hear a lot more about clinical trials. Second project is our zirconium-89 oxime. This is the one where we can track leukocytes, which are peripheral immune cells, as they infiltrate the brain. They cross the blood-brain barrier, infiltrate the brain, and cause inflammation in the brain. This is a positron emission tomography, or PET approach, and we're running this with Jonathan McConaughey and Suzanne Lappy. I think it's going to be an incredibly important scan. We've already done our healthy controls, and now we're starting to run our ME/CFS, or myalgic encephalomyelitis chronic fatigue syndrome patients. So you're going to hear a lot more about that as well pretty soon. Then we have another PET study, which is DPA-714, and that docks on receptors, which we call translocator protein receptors, on activated microglia. So basically, it's a scan that shows us when your microglia in your brain are aggravated and in an inflammatory state, which is really important. We basically want to show or determine, do ME/CFS or chronic fatigue syndrome patients have an inflamed brain? We've already run the patients. I think we have 4 or 5 healthy controls left to do, so we'll have that done in the next few months, and then we will find out. I'm quite sure we will find that because I've already done this in fibromyalgia, and the brain of fibromyalgia is definitely inflamed, and there's so much overlap between fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome that I imagine we'll find the same thing, but we won't know for sure until we run it. And this one's funded by the National Institutes of Health. So then project number 4 is we have brain inflammation, but MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, instead of PET. So this doesn't use radiopharmaceuticals. And in this one, we are looking at brain temperature and lactate, which I think are proxies or signs of inflammation in the brain. So we're almost done with this one as well. I'm going to try to wrap this up in the second half of this year and get those data out there as well. And again, that's funded by the National Institutes of Health. So NIH is funding PET and MRI studies. And all of these imaging things are just to show when there's inflammation in the brain, so we can let everyone know that, and so people know, well, we need to come up with treatments that can target brain inflammation. That's really what we need to go after, because we have to see the problem before we can develop treatments to address it, or at least before we can develop the correct treatments. We have to know what the targets are. So next study is our psilocybin for fibromyalgia pain. This is a clinical trial, pretty simple. We're taking macro doses of psilocybin, giving it to people with fibromyalgia, and we want to see if the psilocybin changes serotonergic systems in a way that reduces their fibromyalgia pain. It's going to or not. We'll do the clinical trial. Most of them are going to be run in the second half of this year, 2024, and then we'll find out if it actually works. So then we have a project of weather and pollutants in ME/CFS. And this is a project being run by Chloe Jones, one of my graduate students, medical psychology graduate student. And it's pretty interesting. It uses people, ME/CFS patients, who rate their fatigue every day. And then we can look at almanac information to know what the weather was doing on those days, to see if anything predicts good days and bad days. And, the sneak peek is, yes, there are some weather variables that fluctuate with good and bad days of ME/CFS, including some pollutant type variables. So that's going to be very interesting and could give some clues as to what provokes ME/CFS flares potentially. So number 7, I'm going to be pushing ahead with dextronaltrexone, and this is my attempt to take low-dose naltrexone and develop a more powerful version of low-dose naltrexone that may work better and work in people that did not respond to low-dose naltrexone. And again, there's a video on this if you want to see why it may work better than low-dose naltrexone. So we're at the first stages of this one, so I won't have any results this year, but at least maybe we can get the project started, and that would be a big deal in creating this new drug. It's complicated because it's never been used in humans before, so there's a lot of steps before we can actually get clinical data on that one. And then the last study is our whole genome sequencing for ME/CFS. This is being run by Liz Worthy and Camille Birch, and it's funded by SolveME. And this one is using this really cool genome sequencing approach that for ME/CFS, it basically will tell you what genetic variants you have that are most likely to be driving your chronic fatigue or whatever your primary symptom is. And we finished the first project that is about to be sent out for peer review. So I'm not going to talk about any of the results right now, but I'm assuming by the end of this year, it'll be published and I can tell you all about that as well. Ultimately, I hope this is something where everyone who has mysterious pain or fatigue or cognitive issues can have this sequencing done and identify what's probably causing it. So those are 8. There are other projects as well, but I think covering the major 8 is good for today. So keep an eye out for updates on all of those things. These are all the things I'm working on every day for the rest of this year. Do want to say thank you to all of you who've been listening to the videos. It's very encouraging to know that y'all find the information helpful, and I'm happy to continue giving updates from the lab every week. So hope you have a good week, and I'll be back a week from today on Monday to give you more updates.